Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to 2-Bit Gaming, the show where Matt and I sit here and make stuff up for about 45 minutes and thousands of people from European countries listen to what we have to say. Matt, how you doing this week?
Whales are rather large.
I've seen them. Went on a whale watch 2 summers ago, a year and a half ago.
This has nothing to do with anything, but there's a rather stupid meme that I can look at any point in the day and I just laugh my head off. I don't know if you've seen it. It's either 2 whales or 2 dolphins that look like they're in a courtroom, like talking to each other. And one of them saying, "Would the defendant please tell the court exactly what kind of whale you are?" And it turns to the podium and there's a killer whale at the podium. He's like, "Well, and then the lawyer's like, objection. Don't answer that." It's like that. Okay, this is stupid, but okay. Yes, memes are a lot funnier when you actually see them.
Yeah, explaining memes, that's like
Right.
middle school crap, Matt. Come on.
Yeah, if I would have been smart, I probably would have said, "Hey, I will put this meme up in post and let you see it yourself." But nope, wasn't smart enough to think of that.
And
that's my bad.
It doesn't do any good to our audiences who just listen on Spotify or iTunes. So
Accurate, kind of defeats the purpose. But nonetheless, it's one of those pick me ups I can always find because I just have it saved on my phone at this point. It's like if I just want a little giggle, it's like, yeah, this okay. I'm good now.
On that note, thanks for sharing, Matt. We are we're about approaching the halfway point of February already. 2019 is 6 weeks out, 6 weeks done already.
It's moving.
Yeah, and we've already seen some cool games come out. Not many. This is technically kind of a drier season. This time of year, it's after the holidays, but we've, between Resident Evil coming out and
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Kingdom Hearts 3 was a big one we talked about last week. This week, I want to talk about a game that's coming out 9 days from today, from the point of this podcast, on February 22nd, and that is Anthem. We kind of briefly covered Anthem 2 weeks ago because the closed beta was going on, and I saw some footage of it, and we wanted to talk about it a little bit. But since then, there's been an open beta, and the developers, BioWare, they did a Q&A on Twitter. So we've learned a lot about the game in a short amount of time. And this was one of those games that, like, E3 being pretty dry last year and even a little bit the year before, this was a game that showed up both of those years and definitely caught my eye both times. You're an Iron Man mech, you're flying around an open world, and the world is your oyster, and you can feel free to fill it with as many bullets as your heart desires. I don't know how.
That's a good way to explain it.
Yeah, I don't know how much you've looked into this game, Matt. Is this game on your radar at all?
Not on a immediate sense. It's one of those that I am curious enough to keep my eye on it, but by no means will I own it within the first month of it releasing.
There you go.
Kind of thing.
Okay.
By and large, mostly because with games like this, for me as a personal gamer, everybody will be a little different on this, but for me with games like this, if I don't have an abundance of friends that I know are going to be getting this game, then I myself am not going to want to get it either, because for me, games like this are not fun by yourself. And I don't really care to play them with random people either. I'd rather just play them with people I know.
It's a fair point.
As opposed to just hopping into a random server. And at the time of recording this podcast, I don't really know an abundance of people that are going to be getting this game. So that being said, no, it's not really on my high to-do list at the moment, but that could easily change.
I got you. Let's break this game down a little bit.
What about you?
For me,
what about you before the breakdown?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, honestly. It's a game that looks fun. I kind of wish I'd jumped in on the demo, because really all I'm curious about is just flying around free roam. I could care less about the missions in this game. Just the little bit of gameplay I've seen of it. I watched a few streamers play the beta, or the pre-release or whatever. And
We can make a
I'm not too
podcast
interested in
deal.
the combat mode of things. It would really take a good group of friends to make me want to play this game.
We could make a podcast oath if someone buys this game for both of us, then we will stream it on your channel.
Jeez. No, don't spend that money on us. Don't do that.
At least one episode, you know, we won't do.
No, I don't mind streaming the game or whatever, but I don't want someone buying this game for me. It's a $60 game. That's a lot of money.
I mean, I don't either. I was just more so making the point of it's not really on our radar, and if you want us to play it that bad, then you're gonna have to buy it.
BioWare, we've got some influence here. You know, we got a couple of thousand dedicated fans or whatever. Send us some codes. All right, BioWare.
Somebody over in Peru or whatever, the ridiculous analytics we
Poland.
looked. I don't even.
That's not
Poland,
even close to Peru.
I knew. Hey, it was a P letter. Dang it! I got
spoken like a true uneducated gentleman.
I got part of it right. Actually, I feel like there were so many different countries that Peru was probably in there somewhere. It was a vast amalgamation of different crap. I was just all over the place. It was just ridiculous.
Well, that being said, so this game's an RPG. It's an MMORPG. I threw too many M's in there. It does remind me a lot of Monster Hunter, honestly. That's coming from someone who's never played Monster Hunter.
That's interesting.
I mean, you kind of have this central hub area. You get missions and you fly out and you defeat the big baddie. You get the resources and you fly back and you sell the resources or use them to make yourself stronger.
Okay. So yeah, the overall mechanics seem to function in a similar fashion.
Yeah. Which is, it's a good formula. This really is BioWare's answer to Destiny, though. They really wanted to, Destiny 1 was a massive, huge hit. Absolutely huge hit. Destiny 2, not as much, but still has a pretty big cult following. And so BioWare's like, well, let's make something that's bigger and better. And honestly, this game does look bigger and better than Destiny does. And as someone who kind of enjoyed Destiny, this game might be fun. But again, this is hard to say because the game's not out yet, nor have we really seen the reviews come out from the review copies. And again, not that I really trust reviews that much. But this game just seems to lack substance. Looking at it, I mean, it's really banking on you can fly anywhere and you're this big, huge, meched up nerd who can just destroy everything in his path. It's like, cool, but what is there for me to do? Oh, you can shoot stuff and fly. All right, but like, what else? I don't know. That's really where I'm at with this game. Is it's lacking content. There's no PvP in this game yet. They In a Q&A, people asked, like, oh, is there going to be PvP? And they said, not at launch. And that was the entire answer. Doesn't say that there will be. Doesn't say that there won't be. That's just their way of covering their butts. So there's no PvP. It's a game that, yeah, you can play it by yourself, but you really need a squad. And the older I get, the harder it is for us to, squad up.
It's such a sad yet true statement. I'm laughing because I'm sad. There's too much validity to that statement.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to react to this.
It takes us way too long to get together and play a game together, just last week you texted me and John and you were like, hey, you want to have a game night or whatever? And John and I were both busy with our wives,
Yep.
And
then the same thing will happen and vice versa. Like whenever one of you are available,
you'll be in the studio with your band or something like that. Like it's hard to line schedules up. And, so this game's probably not meant for people like us. It's probably meant for, high school or college students that don't have as many, I don't know the right word for it. Commitments, I guess.
Responsibilities.
Yeah, they kind of have more time. I come home from school every day, turn on the Xbox or the PS4 or the PC, which those are all the platforms that this game's available for, and meet up with my friends and hang out instead of like, oh no, I've got work and then after work I got to go grocery shop and I got to come home, do the laundry, spend some time with the wife, and then boom, there's my day. it's harder and harder for us to get together and play games. I mean, you can play this game solo. They did say that, which to me tells me there'll be some sort of balancing to it. Like when you accept a mission and you're doing it solo, there'll be fewer enemies spawned in. Maybe the boss will have less health or whatever. But like again, I feel like that would get really dry really quick.
Right. That's something I'm interested to see how that pans out, because I know, like, talking about the comparison with Monster Hunter, that's one of those games that, on paper, yes, you can play it single player, but it's nowhere near as enjoyable, and in a lot of ways, it can be more difficult. Even though in these type of games, when you do multiplayer, typically on a spreadsheet, the enemies get harder because they increase the health or the damage output to kind of equal out the amount of players that are attacking it,
Naturally.
kind of thing. So, in a technical sense, it gets harder the more you have, but it doesn't feel that way. Like when you're by yourself in games like this, I don't know if this was going to be the same as a Monster Hunter, but those enemies take a long time to get down. So when you're spending 15 to 30 minutes on one enemy by yourself, that feels way longer than 15 to 30 minutes with 4 people you're conversing with, kind of thing. So like, even if the reality is it's not harder, it will feel that way because you're carrying the weight of everything on your shoulders as opposed to dispersing it with 4 people.
Yeah, and they're that is an excellent point, because I know we've talked this game up as like go to place, shoot the lads, etc., etc. Well, monsters, not lads, I guess. But there's more to it than that. It's like you have your ultimate objective of the guy gives you the mission. Oh, I need 3 power cores from this place that's guarded by the evil Reptar. I need you to go get them. And so you start flying out in that location, and you have to go through this cave, and you quickly find out in this cave that there's a giant blast door that's closed, and you need to get through it. So you need to figure out how to open the blast door. And, there's a little bit of puzzle solving to it. The game is deeper than I made it out to be. But again, doing all that alone just sounds boring as heck. And, doing it with randos, you're rolling the dice on if you're going to get someone who's helpful, someone who, even if it's someone who's actually in it to play the game and play it well, that you guys might just not mesh, There's different play styles. There's like 3 different kinds of javelins, which are the mech suits. And so if, you both have the same one, you might be bumping into each other all the time as you're trying to play a different play style from each other. Or if you have different ones, maybe, your partner's thinking you're going to do this, but your mech can't really do that. And, it can be frustrating.
So let's bring up the real question here. When was the last time that you were actually satisfied or happy with an EA game after it came out?
Funny you should ask, because EA actually dropped a new game a week ago.
Well, before you get, I was actually going to exclude that one and then segue to that.
Oh, but then never.
So never?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't remember the last EA game I played. I played some EA sports games like a long time ago, Madden and whatever. But
right. Now I'm almost borderline excluding those because they don't even fit
EA
with
sports
this
is kind
category.
of a different division. It's all EA, I guess, but
right. Like, sadly, like the first thing that comes to mind is probably Dead Space.
I haven't played Dead Space.
Was an incredibly long time ago now, which is sad. So I say all that to say that if you want to add a list of reasons why I'm not really overly excited for this game, EA is behind it, man. Like,
well, EA didn't make this game.
They haven't.
They're the people that are making it possible for you to have this game in your hands. BioWare isn't a publisher; they're a developer.
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing as Rare made Banjo-Kazooie, but Nintendo published it. Nintendo didn't have a darn thing to do with the game. Rare made it.
Correct, but no one has a bitter hatred for those two companies like someone does for EA.
Yeah, but I don't.
It's just one of those things. Like, even though knowing they really didn't do jack diddly with it, it's like, I don't even want your name to be on this.
I don't know if that's a fair thing to say. Really,
it's not. It's definitely and I admit to that. But that's just one of those things that I can't get out of my head. Like, oh crap, it's EA.
Yeah.
even though it's Bioware. Like, I get it, but anyway, so I'll let Jay continue the story. There is an exception to that rule that kind of came out of freaking nowhere.
It literally came out of
last
nowhere.
week.
So basically, the story behind this game is about 2 weeks ago. EA reached out to a bunch of battle royale streamers, people like Stone Mountain 64, who's the guy that you might see on Facebook all the time doing those military videos where he jumps into a random squad and acts like a drill sergeant. People like Dr. Disrespect, people like, that kind of crew. And said, hey, we're going to have you guys over to show you our new game, and you can't tell anyone about it yet. And so they went over twice, checked out the game, hyped it up. They're like, dude, I can't wait for you to get your hands on this game. And then all of a sudden, Monday of last week, like the 3rd or whatever, the 4th, I think, EA was like, we have this brand new game coming out called Apex Legends, and it's out today. It's out now, and it's free. So, I mean, it's free as much as a modern game is free. It's similar to Fortnite or even what PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is doing now, where the game itself is free, but there's in-game purchases. The in-game purchases are nothing but cosmetic. For the most part, there's actually 2 other characters that you unlock through playing the game, but you can also just buy them.
Now, this was the bigger issue I actually had with EA being attached to this, because they do, unless BioWare had some sort of contract lined up, usually publishers don't, usually it doesn't work this way. EA probably had the final say as far as when these things got released, most likely.
Oh, probably.
So that was the biggest question I had here, and we'll get into that as Jay goes on. But this seemed like a poor decision.
Timing-wise,
overall,
I think I agree with you.
Yeah, for these to be this close together, like even though they're different games, this is not smart in my book.
Very different games. Like, this game is an online battle royale game, which is, battle royale is the big new thing. I love what they did with it. I love how it's not just a Fortnite clone or a PUBG clone or a Ring of Elysium clone, but they really took it and said, how can we take this formula that's so popular and improve upon it? And to EA's credit, the game's incredibly fun to play. I've played, I don't know, probably about a dozen matches so far. Again, I don't have all the time in the world to play video games these days. But it's a lot of fun. It's got a high skill gap, so you can really, really master the game. Or you can still kind of do okay if you're not really mastering the game. You can still drop in and get a couple of kills before you die. It's got different heroes with different classes and abilities, kind of like Overwatch. It's a very deep game, and I like it a lot. So that's your multiplayer online shooter, competitive battle royale style, where it's more PvP. And Anthem is more cooperative. It's an RPG online experience, published by the same people. And the fact that they dropped the 2 of them, what will be 3 weeks apart, kind of is a bit of a head scratcher.
Very big. And here's the bigger perplexing thing. Like, on top of the fact that if that is the only fact, it's already a head scratcher. Like Jay said, you're already kind of thinking, why would you do that to yourself this close? They've already done this before. They have tried this once, and they said the same thing then, and it didn't work that time either. They released Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2 really close to each other. And they said, hey, we get that, the games are kind of similar, but they have, completely different motivations, and, players are looking for different things out of it. Yeah, they're multiplayer, but, you have different things. Wrong. Stupid. And then both of them fell short of sales expectations because you released them way too close to each other, and you divided the sales that were going to be for the games because you have forgotten what it's like to be a poor consumer for games that are $60 a piece now.
Right.
So you made people choose one or the other, as opposed to the very small amount of clientele that can probably buy both of these at the same time.
Right.
Which is the reality of the world. So that's what's really stupid to me, is like, you have literally already seen this. You tried this and it didn't work. Why? And that wasn't even that long ago. That's what's even worse.
Yeah,
Like that
was
was
only
what, like 2016, I think.
Titanfall 1? That came out when I was in college, dude.
I mean, 2016 was only. I mean, it's just now 2019, so I think numerically 3 years ago. But
Titanfall 1 released in 2014.
Titanfall 2.
Oh, you said 2. My apologies.
Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1.
Titanfall 2, 2016. Yeah, you nailed it.
There we go. So like, that's not even that long ago.
So let's get the dates. Titanfall 2 released October 28th of 2016, and Battlefield, which one?
Battlefield 1.
Battlefield 1 release date was October 21st of 2016. It was literally a week apart.
So they learned a little bit. Hey, instead of 1 week, let's make it 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit different because one of the games already free and whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, I really think that all the hype that Apex has been getting, it's gotten tons of positive reviews. It's got influencers and streamers backing it. I mean, and as someone who's not backed by this game, it's a ton of fun to play, and it's free. You have nothing to lose. I recommend it, but I think that a lot of the excitement from this game might take away from Anthem sales.
I'm torn on that one. I don't really know how to feel yet, which I hate because I know we're kind of on the apex of being at the last possible situation to try to make a guess on this, but no pun intended with this being about the game Apex. Games like this, the games like Apex Legends often come out strong and then die off really quick.
You're absolutely correct.
If they come out strong, it's usually kind of one or two. They either just completely flop and just either stay there if a developer can somehow keep it afloat, or it hits really strong and then it's mostly going to be, at this point, it's a matter of its competition, which right now would be your Fortnite and your PUBG and your Overwatch and stuff like that. And with that much of heavy hitters around it, it kind of begs the question. I mean, really, what are you bringing to the table that these aren't, other than the fact that you're new? But newness wears off.
Yeah.
So you can't hold on to that forever. Like that's going to die.
Well,
so when that goes away, what do you have?
It's kind of interesting you bring that up. When Call of Duty 4 Black Ops 4 came out with the Blackout mode, which was their Battle Royale game, I thought that was going to be the one to kind of put a dent in Fortnite for a little while. Because it was a ton of fun to play, and you saw a lot of Fortnite players move over to play this, to try it out, and they realized it's kind of fun, and they were having fun. But at the end of the day, Fortnite, they update their game every 3 weeks or so with new content in it, like major new content, like new areas of the map, or, this part of the map's been blown up by a UFO or whatever. Like stuff changes all the time. Blackout's been out since October. Call of Duty launched, October, November. And in that time, they added a boat to the map, a very small boat. Like they didn't keep the game alive. It's kind of gone are the days where you can make a game and have that be good enough. In the online realm, you have to keep the game fresh and interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see what EA does to Apex to keep that game alive. If they're going to add things, if they're going to listen to their consumers and be like, listen, the shield recharge rate, it's too slow. You need to tweak that. You need to make the game a little more playable for this, that, and the other thing. Are you going to have multiple maps, kind of like PUBG does, or are you going to have one map that's constantly changing, like Fortnite does? We're going to have to wait and see what they do with it. If they keep this game alive, this game can run for years. But if they're going to kind of release it and just kind of let it be, then this game will flop in 3 more weeks tops.
And, you can say whatever you want to say about Fortnite. There's people that hate it. There's people that love it. There's in between. There's all over the place. They understand their market.
Oh yeah.
Better than any of the games like that I have seen out there. They have a full grasp on what to do to keep their market engaged. They have figured out the 2019 or 2018, 2017. I can't remember. Did they start in 2016 or was it 17?
I couldn't tell you. Probably 17 if I had to guess.
Something like that. They have nailed it to where they understand what the market is looking for, what they want to see, and they adapt to it. They made mistakes and they corrected them based on suggestions that some of the market made.
I don't know, man. Airplanes are still in the game, and that's like the biggest mistake they've ever made.
See, I like the airplanes.
I hate the airplanes. Get them out of the game.
You can't tell me that we didn't laugh our freaking heads off that time that me, you, and John got on there with the planes.
Oh, sure. Like it's fun to fly around or whatever, but it's the most frustrating thing in the world when, you and your squad, or even if you're just playing solos, you roll up on this team, you tactically, you outplay them, you outbuild them, you outshoot them. They get some good shots off on you, you're half health, but they're dead, and then all of a sudden another plane just flies in and kills you from across the map because they heard the gunshots go off. It's a no-skill win. It's awful. I hate it.
I don't know if I'd go too far as say it's no-skill win.
Oh, it's no skill at all. Fortnite did launch in 2017, by the way, just to bring that point back
17.
around.
But at any rate, it just leads me to lead back to what we were saying about Apex. I wish the best for it and hope. I never wish ill on really any game, but I don't really know in this current time with not only Fortnite, but you're having Overwatch is a crazy heavy hitter as well.
Mm-hmm.
PUBG has lost a lot of steam, but it's still not dead.
Correct.
In the water by any means.
It's actually doing better than ever because they adopted a Fortnite-like model.
Right. So when you have all that already here, it's kind of, it goes back to what I said, the first thing I said about in my mind, all you have going for you right now, your biggest pull is that you are new and possibly different in a little ways, and you have that new car smell about you that is pulling everyone to your game right now. That alone will not keep people on your game. So, I know we don't have the answer for it yet, but it's what is going to keep people there? And there's also another factor that is kind of a anomaly that you can't control, you can't prepare for in really any literal sense. You can try, but the social popularity factor, which is kind of more or less how Fortnite initially got where it is, there's an inevitability that when you have two games that are similar to each other, even if they're almost identical, that whichever one people latch onto the most in a social aspect, to where there are more people online playing that game, communicating, hanging out while playing the game, that becomes a snowball, and that grows and grows and grows to where almost that fact can carry itself, which is crazy because that can sometimes have nothing to do with the game at all.
Yeah.
Which is, it's an incredible thing to look at, and it's got to be incredibly frustrating for game developers because you can't, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
You really can't. The best thing you could do would be like Fortnite does, which is they constantly throw in, modern culture stuff, whether it be memes or ridiculous things like that. That's about the closest thing in my mind you could do to trying to somewhat control the social hangout aspect of it.
Well, that's why I think that, again, I love to make fun of EA as much as the next guy. All right, I'm going to throw that out there. But I think they made a really good move in doing what they did by contacting these Twitch streamers and influencers and getting them excited about the game and getting their input on, what would you like to see tweaked? What would you like to see do this, whatever? Getting their inputs, getting them excited for the game, and then, getting them to play their game on Twitch and on Facebook and on YouTube and all these other places, and maximizing the exposure, because this game came out of nowhere. Once again, 8 days ago from the time of this recording, 8 days ago, this game, no one had heard of it. They hadn't announced it yet. Mm-hmm. No one knew this game existed. And now it's a huge battle royale game that's a ton of fun to play.
Right. Which makes it even more frustrating that they did it this close to another game coming out. Like, why?
Yeah, it's
Why you do this?
but
Like,
again,
this is only going to hurt yourself. I think ultimately.
yeah, no, I definitely think that this is definitely going to put at least a small chip in Anthem's javelin armor.
I would argue it's going to hurt both.
I don't think it'll hurt this
Like-
game at all. I don't think we're going to see Apex get hurt much when Anthem comes out. You might a little bit, like the day of, maybe the week of, or whatever. Anthem will come
Right.
out. Some people might go play it or whatever, but I think they'll ultimately end up playing the game they want to play.
What I meant by that, I didn't mean that one would destroy the other. I mean, whenever Anthem comes out, now that this game is out and the way these games work, they're not overnight Fortnites. They don't just immediately have the mass following. It grows a little bit. It grows at an incredibly rapid rate, mind you, but it doesn't just happen immediately. So they're still constantly growing right now, and there's a good chance, but by the time Anthem comes out, that growth may not have stopped. And what might happen is you got to think of all the logistics of everything that you can't. We really have no way of knowing this, but let's just say for kicks and giggles that they run into a Niantic situation to where the growth actually far exceeded their expectations, and at the moment they don't have the servers or the infrastructure to handle the massive growth in that short of a time frame. So then they're expanding, and then Anthem drops, and let's say Anthem doesn't flop but doesn't do the same thing they wanted either, but it does enough to where it pulls people away from Apex for a little bit. And the biggest income of a game like Apex is microtransactions, because the game is free to play.
Right.
So it's going to, if you have people leave it to play something else, even though, it was a free game and you still got people playing it, your income might have left because that income went to pay for Anthem, which is not a free game. So then that happens. And then Apex, may have not gone down drastically, but may have gone down enough to where now you just got all this new infrastructure and new overhead, yet you lost clientele because you had this crowd that left for Anthem. So then you're back in a hole that puts you to where, what do? Do you either push forward or do you let people go? And then it puts you in a terrible situation to where, in a business sense, there's a lot that could go wrong in a very short amount of time. That's why it's in a gaming aspect, it's whatever. But like as a business, that seems like a terrible idea to me. Like, and there's so many different ways this could play out. It could easily work out for everybody, and we could not have a clue what we're talking about, and it could turn out fine.
Yeah.
But on the surface, when you hear something like this, like that sounds risky. It's not to say that it won't work, but it sounds risky. Like, why would you intentionally do it that close when games are not coming out that close to each other in this quarter of the year anyways? Like, you could push that back a little bit. It wouldn't have killed, especially when this is not this game. You could have released it at any time because no one knew about it,
Right.
at all. So it's not like Anthem where you can say, well, people knew about it. We had to kind of hold it to a deadline. Yeah, that makes sense. Nobody knew about Apex, so
Maybe
where's your excuse on that one?
Maybe what EA is doing here, and this is again all speculation, is maybe they're kind of anticipating that Anthem won't do as well as some people might think it will. It might flop a little bit. It might not have the content that people want. Again, they said it's not going to be PvP, at least not at launch. So maybe they're like, well, let's kind of put this other game out there to kind of maybe satisfy them in that way. And, if Anthem is a big colossal failure, we'll still have this other game to kind of fall back on and double down on, And I don't know if, I don't know what BioWare's plans are for Anthem for the future. They haven't really talked about that a whole lot. They're keeping it vague, so we'll have to see. But
well, I mean, as we know, there's literally three possibilities. This is just saying common sense out loud, but you either have option A, where Apex thrives and causes Anthem to flop. Option B, the vice versa, where Anthem does fine, causing Apex to either flop or slowly fade away. And then option 3, everything just is hunky dory and everybody goes on with their lives and everybody does well.
I don't know.
That's
Apex is
basically
kind
the
of
3 outcomes.
it's kind of the big middle finger to Titanfall fans, because it was the team that was behind Titanfall, and everyone's like, when's Titanfall 3 coming out? When are you doing another Titanfall? And they're like, we're not. We made Apex instead. And then by releasing that, not only are you kind of upsetting the Titanfall fans, I mean, BioWare's got to be sitting there scratching their heads like, guys, I thought you had our backs. Like, why are you releasing this big game weeks before you were about to release ours, you know?
Right.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We just have to wait for the future to see. Obviously, this is going to be a story that at least I keep up with as someone who plays Apex and doesn't give a rip about Anthem right now. But I want to see the numbers. I want to see if they meet expectations, if they exceed expectations. I want to see what EA does with Apex going forward, what they're going to do to sustain the game and the quality of life. I want to see what BioWare does with Anthem and what they're going to do to evolve the game and give it some quality of life and some shelf life. And we'll have to see.
Let me ask you this, since for Jay, since you have played Apex a little bit, so you have a actual personal experience that you can come from on this, and me and you have dealt with games like this in the past, not just Fortnite, but like your unpopular ones too that don't exist anymore. We've played them more or less here or there. Do you personally feel that from what you have played of this game, you know, obviously for anyone listening, you know, Jay's word is not martial law. It doesn't mean that whatever he says is going to happen. We're just asking him his opinion here. From what you have played, does Apex have anything to offer right now that will hold its ground after the newness has worn off?
I think the variety in play style will keep this game alive. Like we didn't really touch on this a whole lot, but there are different legends that you can play as. You know, one of them has a grappling hook and a zip line that he can set up. One's kind of a medic. One's kind of like a heavy shield character. One's big on offense. One has portals they can use. There's and all that evolving play style will kind of keep things fresh, in my opinion. It'll allow people to continue to push and challenge themselves, because in Fortnite you don't really have that. It's, you know, you're going to load in, you're going to get your favorite weapons and get matted up, and then it's just a matter of circle and how it plays out. Some of it's luck, some of it's skill. But with this, it really, you know, you can adjust, you can change, you can you can play the game however you want to. It's actually got a lot of Overwatch fans and even members of the Overwatch League, which for those of you who don't know, when this podcast comes out on Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, is the kickoff of the Overwatch League Season 2. And some teams are having some issues because all of their Overwatch players want to play Apex. It's not a huge issue, but it has been something that has popped up on a couple different teams. How they're like, man, you know, we had to take some time off practice today to play Apex, or, you know, we so and so was late to practice because they were playing Apex, and it's just very funny to hear that that the Overwatch, you know, crowd is into this game as well, and I think that'll help it as well. You know,
That's so interesting from a situation like that, because those guys, that is just case in point, just the importance of a newness factor, especially when you're in a league to where you got to think, just like anything, when you're doing something professional like that, the amount of times you have to spend doing this thing, you can actually get tired of it very quick. So for them, it's probably wonderful to have this thing that has the things that they like, but have differences that kind of gives them that spark again, which is probably really great for them. But at the same time, it's really funny because if you strip it down to its core, there's nothing different about the game itself. I know there's probably going to be people like, oh, 10 million different. Like, I know there are differences. I'm saying it's a mass multiplayer battle royale. You know, when you strip it down to the nuts and bolts of it.
Right.
Which is really funny. Like I feel like anytime I reading through threads on social media and you have people bickering about Fortnite, PUBG, Overwatch, this and I'm just sitting here with a thing of popcorn and just watching and laughing as people talk about how drastically different these games are, and it's like they're really not. they have things that attract different people as far as the style and stuff like that, but like they all function the same way. Like I don't what the points that they're making are just ridiculous on both of them. They're like, this sucks because of this. That's literally how your game works. It's visually different. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you get things that can ruin games really quickly are the fans of those games, you know. Just you can be passionate about a game, that's fine. Just don't be annoying about it. Understand that there are other games out there, that there are people out there who don't like your game, and that's fine, you know.
Right.
But being obnoxious about it and being like I remember back like in 2008 when Let's Playing was really starting to take off. You'd have there were basically two kinds of Let's Players. This kind of still carries over today. It's just two different kinds now. And there was basically people who would make videos about one certain game, and then people who would make Let's Plays about different games and kind of play through a game at a time, or maybe even two games at a time.
Right. And
so you'd have one of the bigger ones of that first group were Call of Duty people, where they would just make Call of Duty videos. And they would put their gameplay up online with maybe some commentary over it or some hot Linkin Park or something like that. Excuse me, threw up in my mouth a little bit. And you'd have all of those Let's Players, the fans thereof, go over to the comment section of the other group of people playing, you know, Pokemon and Zelda and Kingdom Hearts or whatever have you, God of War, who cares? And just fill the comment section with play a real game like Call of Duty and whatever. It's like, all right, Call of Duty is a fine game, don't get me wrong, but you acting like that makes me not want to play Call of Duty.
Right.
And that's where I think especially Call of Duty kind of gets a bad rap as being like the jock game, you know?
Right, because it has a toxic fan base, more or less.
Yeah.
Or really all games do to an extent. It's just the size of them varies and, you know, in different ways. I think we talked about this a little bit on either the last podcast or the one before about the concept of, you know, you cannot like a game and that's fine.
Yeah.
But that does not inherently make it a bad game.
Right.
Those are different things. And people, I don't know if it's, you know, it's the internet. It's hard to say. Some, you know, there might be people who legitimately think that way, and then there's probably a good bit of them that just don't care and are just going to say what they want to say because it's the internet and they can say what they want without a whole lot of consequence.
Right.
So it's kind of hit or miss. But, and you know, YouTube in and of itself, out of all the platforms that you could get into comment threads on games about, that's probably the most toxic, I would think. And usually, not only that, YouTube comments, they could just have nothing to do with anything. You know, you could be having a video game about, let's just say a game Jay played, Cuphead, playing a game Cuphead. You know, Jay's streaming on his channel and he has a webcam. But let's say he did it on YouTube, the same thing, as opposed to Twitch, where there's going to conversate with him and talk about the game or talk about life or whatever, because it's an actual live conversation. YouTube might say, oh my gosh, why is Jay wearing that shirt? And then you can go on 30 comments about the shirt that have zero to do with anything that's happening, and which would be more appropriate on Twitch, where he could talk about it at that point. But instead, that kind of crap happens on YouTube too much. We're like, that doesn't make sense. This person's not. Why are we talking about this? So, yeah, comments can get a little weird.
They
in
can.
certain aspects. I don't even remember what took us to that point.
I mean, hey, we bounce all around the place. I mean, we've been going for almost 45 minutes now, so it just bounces around.
Right. We followed the rabbit trail somewhere. I came out a different portal than I started, and I've lost the yarn trail back home.
Well, to bring it back home, Apex Legends.
Jay still has his.
Apex Legends is available for free for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. If you're going to play it on PC, you unfortunately have to launch it through the Origin app, which is just hot garbage. And I really just wish EA would just bow their heads and just be like, all right, we'll put everything on Steam like Ubisoft did. It's just awful. It's the first day I went to go play this game. I was playing it with John and Fraser, and we couldn't connect to each other's games because of Origin, because of EA's game launcher. It took us we all had to reboot the program. I had to re-download it twice. It just wouldn't work, and then we finally got it to work. So there's that.
So yet again, EA potentially killing their own product.
Yeah, and same deal with Anthem. That is available for the same platforms as well. I don't know if you have to launch that one through Origin or if that's on Steam. Someone can let me know in the comments if they feel like looking it up or whatever. So that's where you can play all those games. Apex is out now. Anthem comes out on the 22nd. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of people streaming it. Probably some people that I even watch will probably be streaming it, and I'll get a much better idea. We'll be able to follow the lifespan of these two games and kind of see which one dies first, which is a really bad, morbid way to put it.
but kind of true.
Yeah. Well, in other news, coming up at the end of this month, the end of March, is PAX East, which is a video game convention right here in my backyard of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm going to be there on Saturday. So if we have any friends or fans of the show or whatever, that you're also going to be at PAX East on Saturday and you want to hang out and grab a bite to eat or whatever, hit me up on Twitter at Let's Jays and let me know. Matt will not be there because he's dumb.
Yep. Well, that, and you have to get those tickets really far in advance.
They're still available, actually. Some of them are. I don't think you can get any Saturday ones, but I think some Friday ones might still be available.
Yeah, but who wants to do that? Saturday.
I actually usually go Friday and Saturday, and sometimes Sunday as well. But this year, I opted just to go Saturday. And they also have passes for Thursday, I believe, as well. So you can go any of those days. But I'll be there Saturday. I'd love to hang out with you, talk games, do whatever. So if you're going to be there, let me know, and we can meet up. But that's going to just about do it for our show this week. Matt, anything you wanted to add in before we hit him with the comment question of the day?
No, I mean, just, let us know your thoughts on Apex and Anthem. I know this is kind of a dual episode. There's a little bit about both, but we kind of want to get your take on it on, are we idiots and have no idea what we're talking about, or did some of what we said make sense? Just kind of go back and forth. Let's see where we land.
All right. Well, comment question of the day was left up to me, and I forgot about it for 45 minutes. So here we are. But I have one. What's a game that both of these games are online games. You have to play them with other people. That is one thing I don't like about Apex right now, and I know that they're working on it, is you can only play this game in squads of 3. You can't launch into a game solo. It will automatically pair you up with 2 other people.
That sucks.
Yeah, and that's what draws me away from playing this game all the time, is because I don't want to play with randos all the time. I want to play with my friends all the time, or just by myself.
Right.
But it is what it is. I'm sure that feature is coming. But anyway, these games being online games, what's an online game that you've been playing lately, or that you love to go back and play, maybe even though it's not as popular or something like that, I'll go ahead and answer since I asked the question, and I can give Matt a second to think. Lately, me and a couple of the guys have been playing Borderlands 2. And that's a game that I've started twice. This is my 3rd attempt to beat the game. And it's a lot of fun. I really like the game. So Borderlands 2 would be my answer.
it specifically has to be one that's not necessarily popular.
Yeah, you can be whatever you want it to be. Just like what's an online game that you enjoy?
One outside of the norm of. Well, I'll give you two answers outside of the norm of what I would normally answer.
'Cause Matt can never
Super
answer a question easily.
Nope. Well, I was thinking like if I was gonna answer like immediately, I would kind of give like a cop out question and say Bloodborne or Dark Souls because they have PvP functions.
Oh my gosh!
But those games are getting old enough now to where it's a little harder to do that in a quick fashion. So I don't really do that anymore because it takes too much time.
Yep.
So I was gonna say the reason I had to give two answers, I was gonna say for a long time it was Super Smash Brothers, but I have a Wii U, so now that the Switch is out, that's also kind of not as easy to pair up with the people you want to.
Sell your Wii U and get a Switch, my dude.
Yeah, not opposed to it, but at the same time, it's like money and why. So the answer of what I do now, I guess the most would, it's probably still got to be Fortnite, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It's not a bad game.
I know
Fortnite's a lot of fun.
Yep. I mean, because like we said earlier, it's just I only play those games if I have people to play it with, and I still do. You know, several of us, we don't play it all the time per se, but you know, we still hop on every now and then and play it whenever we can.
Right.
So, of the ones that I have that are still relative, that's all I got.
If there was any online game, past, present, or future, even if it's a dead game or whatever, that you could get enough people together to play, would that change your answer?
Yes, absolutely. And if it still existed, which it doesn't, but the original Star Wars Battlefront.
Yes.
Without question.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot back last season when the
oh yeah,
when 2
I would even
out.
accept. I would also accept Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2, as well. Either or is fine because the only difference between the two is they had Jedi and Sith that you could jump in.
Another EA game. Look at that.
Back when EA was good,
not the worst. I wouldn't say good, but not the worst.
Those games were good.
That's fair.
I'll concede to that. They made a good game there, and then they just.
I mean, they made some good James Bond games back in the day. Nightfire is still one of my favorites to go back and play, you know, for the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic video game.
I mean, I know you didn't play it, but Dead Space was a fantastic series.
Make EA great again. I thought Dead Space was 2K.
It's...
I'll look that up real quick. I don't want to misinform our viewers.
I know for a fact Dead Space 3 was EA because it had online functions and you had to have some sort of EA account to make it work. So I don't know if 2K was involved.
It was developed by Visceral Games but published by Electronic Arts.
There you go.
So they didn't make the game, they just published it.
Right. Which was weird because in order to play the online of Dead Space 3, you had to have an EA account.
Ugh, gross.
Right? That's what makes that even more confusing. Maybe they had more hands in Dead Space 3. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this week. Next week, we have 2 roads that we could potentially take. There are rumors that Nintendo will be dropping a new Nintendo Direct between now and next week, which I am eagerly looking forward to seeing what they have to say. And if that doesn't happen, Matt, what will we be talking about?
If that doesn't happen, then we are going to talk about some Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Tasty.
That's
the game brought to you by the people who have done Dark Souls and Bloodborne. So,
and we'll see how it translates. I'm excited to see that one.
I am too.
Yet another one I'm not necessarily going to get at launch, but I'm excited to see.
That actually surprises me, but we will talk about that more next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting up with us for 50 minutes now, whatever. I don't know how long we've been at, but love you all. We will see you guys next week. Matt, what's the worst joke you have?
Okay. What did Batman say to Robin before they got in the car? Robin, get in the car.